veamos como iguales y no este caballero que tienen ustedes de presidente. ¿Qué es la democracia? La democracia no es un sistema a través del cual una élite enriquecida explota a la mayoría empobrecida. No, la democracia debe ser, dijo Abraham Lincoln, gobierno del pueblo, gobierno por el pueblo y gobierno para el pueblo. A eso dedico yo y dedicaré todos los días de mi vida.
I'm going to allow Ambassador Rocío Maneiro to explain what's happening, and we can take questions afterwards. I'd like to welcome Maureen O'Sullivan, TD, and a number of others here who represent different TDs in the Dáil. It was a fairly short notice that we called this meeting, again because of the urgency of the situation, I suppose, and a lot of people wanted to know firsthand what's happening. Rocío has just been accredited to Ireland and was over here a couple of weeks ago to meet and receive her accreditation from President Higgins. So this is her second visit, I think, in her whole entire lifetime to this country. So if you give her a warm welcome, and we'll get started.
Well, thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, and forgive my English, okay? Forgive my English. It is not easy for an ambassador who resides in London and have concurrency here to have the opportunity to come and have you here. The group is very important for us because, you know, we will come here, I will come here about once every 2-3 months. I cannot do it more than that. So the more opportunities I have to try to explain to you is better. Because one thing, you have the version of the right very, very well presented by the media, the international media. And we are trying to cope with that, and we are trying to give our version in small groups using the redes, the nets.
The nets,
yes.
Social networks.
Social networks and so on. So what is happening in Venezuela? Things are very ugly. I didn't come here to tell you lies, because you cannot fight with lies. You have to fight with the truth. Very ugly, and nobody knows what is going to happen, including a civil war. Let's be clear about that. Every day things are worsening. And why is that? The main reason is the United States. Since, just to put a date, since 1904, when this theory, this doctrine, the Monroe Doctrine was born, United States is used to think about Latin America at his backyard, a place where he does whatever he pleases. And it has been very challenging for them to understand that things are changing. In 1829, listen to this, in 1829, you know who is Simón Bolívar, of course. Okay. He wrote a letter to the British Chargé d'Affaires in Colombia, 1829. And in that letter, he told the British Chargé d'Affaires, United States is like is putting there, placing in this America by providence to fill America, to plague America of miseries in the name of freedom. This man said that in those days, and it is true, it is true. From those days up to now, we have had in America more or less 50 armed interventions from the United States, and about 50 or more interventions, but not armed, but using another means, more sophisticated, using the media, using allies. United States doesn't have to work now unilaterally. He can use allies and come multilaterally in the name of freedom. In the name of freedom. This is something that we have to understand. There is another thing that we have to understand. The principle of non-intervention that is at the chart of United Nations is not a principle from the international law. It's a principle created by Latin Americans. It's part of the what they called the international Latin American law. In Europe, the principle of non-intervention was unknown, was not something that was applied. And this principle is important for us, very important. But for Europe, the importance lies in the humanitarian right, the humanitarian law. Human rights, all rights of man. But non-intervention sometimes collides with that. You can use humanitarian rights for intervention. You can declare this country is not acting well with respect with the human rights of his citizens. It doesn't matter if you have Guantanamo. If you are United States and you have Guantanamo, if you intervene in a country, if you destroy Iraq, it doesn't matter, because you are strong. The important thing is that you have there the humanitarian rights to deny the principle of non-intervention that for us is sacred, absolutely sacred. Well, at this moment, United States is trying to do like a pinza. I don't know how you call that. Yes, a pinza. He's trying to come up with sanctions to Venezuela, but not unilaterally, with allies. Okay, this pinza is coming in America through the OAS, the Organization of American States. The Organization of American States is the regional branch of United Nations. That's what it is. It's a multilateral forum and is the regional branch of the United Nations. This is this PINS, and this is the other one, Europe, the European Union. And the United States is trying to get into Europe through Spain, because there is a traditional link between Latin America and Spain. So with the help of Spain, United States is getting into the core of the European Union to convince Europeans that they have to come with United States and put sanctions into Venezuela. I am not telling this because I want to say it. 3-4 days ago, the Speaker of the Department of State said that we are very worried with human rights in Venezuela, with what is happening in Venezuela, and we are talking. Mr. Tillerson is the Secretary of State. Tillerson is talking with Europeans to see, our European allies, to see if we can come up with some measures, sanctions to this country and this government. And we are using the good offices of Spain. You have that, you just Google, and you will have it. So this is the big problem. The big problem. Venezuela have a menace from outside, from abroad. What is happening inside? Okay. The main problem inside is that we have always been in an oil country. It is difficult not being an oil country when you have the biggest reserves of oil in the world. Forget about Saudi Arabia, forget about all that. The biggest one. It is not easy leaving oil aside and start to change the economic structure. When you have been the creator of the OPEP, that's OPEC in English.
Yeah.
Okay. So each and every one of the presidents of Venezuela, the goods and the good ones and the bad ones, since 1925, when the first oil came up. Okay, 1925. Venezuela was an agricultural country, and we have a wonderful soil for agriculture. But in 1925, the oil came up. Since that moment, up to now, all governments, good and bad, have been trying to use oil, of course, but also to try to diversify economy. It's not easy. It's not easy. And it's worse when you are Chavez, you are coming to power, you have 82% of poverty, and in that 82%, 15% is ugly poverty. And you have to do something. So you get the oil and you say, listen, the first thing here is to pay the social debt. Pay the social debt. I don't know, we have to do that. So it's not easy. Then we have made mistakes. That is true. We have made mistakes. But the first reason is that our income for oil was more than $100 billion in 2012. Do you know how much is now? $6 billion.
Is that every year, income every year, or production? Production.
No. The income every year. We had, in 2012, we had $100 billion, and now $6 billion. So, we are now trapped in a big problem. And when the people have economic problems, you know that they protest. And they have the right to do so. They have the right to do so. So at this moment you have the government trying to give the people what they need, trying to destroy what the opposition does. Let me tell you what the opposition does. I produce this. I have to distribute it here. The opposition dominates the whole distribution net. So when this comes here, it's rotten. It's the same thing that they did with Chile. It's not new. The thing is not new. So we have this problem. That is true. In the middle of this disaster, the government is managing, I don't know how, to take 75% of the income to continue providing the misiones. You know what are the misiones?
Social programs.
Social programs. 70%. You cannot say that our people is hungry. No, you cannot say that. Of course, they don't have what they have in 2012, in 2011. But they have their schools, free schools. The workers have their law, labor law, that for me is the best in the world. It's the best in the world. Well, it's not for me. For the sindicalistas, the unions in London, they discovered this law about, I don't know, 3 years ago?
They was approved in 2012.
Okay, but there in London, they knew about this law about 2 years and a half ago, and now it's the bandera. How you say, the flag of them. Okay. Okay, it's in full force, and children are going to the school and having their milk and their food in the school. Of course, they don't have lunch. They have a good breakfast. Now we are thinking if taking out the breakfast and give them the lunch, because there is no money. We have a very, very difficult moment. And United States is taking advantage of that. Taking advantage of that. I think they are not going to win. Because, you know, they couldn't do it with Cuba. They haven't been able to do it with Bolivia. They haven't been able to do it with Ecuador. Of course, there is a great difference. Ecuador and Bolivia have agriculture. We don't have it. That's the difference, because the politics, the policies, economic policies are almost the same. The thing is that we don't have this basamento, this basis of agriculture that they have. I think we will prevail. And I am looking at a phenomenon, for me a phenomenon. There were about a year ago, many of the intellectuals, left-wing intellectuals, some intellectuals, very important, were not active in helping Venezuela. Well, they are coming now. They are coming back. They are saying we cannot let this happen. If this happens, the whole progress states, governments of Latin America will come down. Everything that was achieved is going to be lost. So,
are you referring to Venezuelan intellectuals or global?
Global intellectuals. And that is because they are seeing the big picture. They are seeing the big picture. Well, I hope we have in London a big movement of solidarity with Nicaragua, Cuba, Venezuela, and Bolivia. I hope that we will have this same thing here. Because the important thing is here to talk, send by the net, trying to spread some things. So if we can give all of you some material, some information, but not lies, information to help you to understand what is happening and help us to make other people understand. That will help. That will help. I don't think that United States could intervene so easily today as he did it before. We never know, but I don't think that United States could do it now so easily. Let us hope not. Let us hope not. What is my government doing at this moment? Okay, we have a constitution, and this constitution that is in full force since 1999, okay? 1999. Okay, has 3 articles. In these 3 articles, 347, 348, and 349, it says, okay, sovereignty lies in the people. Sovereignty lies in the people. The people has the right to change everything, to do everything because it's the sovereign, okay? To call for a new assembly, a constituent assembly, to change the law of the land. It cannot change it for bad. It can change it only for good. Okay, the ones who can have the initiative to call for this constituent are the president or the National Assembly or 15%
Registered votes.
of the registered voters.
Of the registered voters.
Registered voters, okay. So the president say, okay, if I cannot have a dialogue, let us do it by the constituent. Let us do it there. Let us call the constituent. He's calling for the constituent. Everything is coming, you know. We have the elections to elect the constituentistas the 30th of July. Then they will install and they will start to debate. Some people say, but that will not be a space to debate because the opposition is not going to be there. Well, the opposition has the right to be there. Nobody's telling the opposition not to be there. In 2002, they decided not to go to elections for parliament, for the National Assembly. Of course, the elections came. The result was that the opposition was not in the assembly because they didn't go. And then, well, if you can go, if you don't want to go, what else? But this is, I think, the only way, I think, at this moment, to try to come back with peace. Because if we don't have peace, we cannot do anything else. At this moment, there is no possibility of economic measure, of nothing. So that's it. And there is another effort for dialogue that is like parallel at the same time. That is the dialogue of the Pope, the Vatican, promoted by UNASUR, by some countries, Spain, Dominican Republic, Panama, I don't remember, about 5 countries now.
So Dominican Republic, Panama, Spain.
No, but then they came another ones. It was Nicaragua, San Vincent and the Grenadines, Salvador. Okay, so are many countries now. And they are trying. Let us wait, there is a good sign today, about 2 hours ago. They they took from the jail a Leopoldo Lopez and put it in his home.
House arrest.
This is an opposition leader.
Yes.
Yes, this is one of the big opposition leaders. And he's in house arrest. I think that more of the left is not at easy with this decision. Not at all. There is a big group of the victims of violence that don't agree with that. But the law is the law, and this Court of Justice decided today that he is going on house arrest. I think that's a good signal, and I hope that this will not fall in another, problem inside. Anyhow, what can I tell you? Please help us. Just talking and interesting yourselves for what is happening there. And we will try to feed you with information. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Rocío. And I should have welcomed earlier Hermes Herrera's from Cuba, Cuban ambassador to Ireland. Very welcome, Hermes. We'll take questions, but I wanted to ask a couple of things that I think most people here would probably want to know as well that Rocío did not cover. Firstly, the situation recently, reports recently of attacks in some parts of Caracas and other areas or municipalities as they're called in Venezuela. Who is carrying out these attacks? What threat do they represent in terms of the pressure on government and government forces? Who's ultimately responsible for them? I'm not just talking about this attack if you saw it last week, on the courts, where a guy took a helicopter and threw a couple of grenades out of the sky. But there are reports of regular violent incidents and protests on the streets. And I think you made a distinction between people protesting because they're hungry, which they have a right to do, and other protests. That's the first thing. How extensive is this? The second thing is, what's the situation within the military? Because of course we know that Chavez came out of a military background, and his movement, the movement around that he has built, the Bolivarian movement, is of course fundamentally rooted in the military. How strong is the political force that Maduro has to call on in society? And that affects that obviously is going to influence a vote in these forthcoming assembly elections. And thirdly, what is the actual intervention? Firstly, in relation to oil, we know the price of oil has dropped in recent years, and clearly that's an issue for Venezuela and other oil-producing countries. But that dramatic drop from what you described as 100 billion down to 6 billion is quite an extraordinary. You could explain that. So there's 3 points, and then people can throw.
Well, I don't know. I think that goes. That's too much. I will answer. I will answer.
Okay.
But let us
start with the protests. Okay.
Okay. No, I will start with the military.
The military.
I think the military are important. Okay. Chavez was a very special man. He was a military, but his brother was scientific. He was, ingeniero physics, what, I don't know.
Physicist, engineer.
Yes, and he was from the left. And he was connected with the whole left of Venezuela. When the left decided to do something about the country, about the government, about 82% of poverty, this cannot continue like this. They asked, they got reunited. There were many, Ali Rodriguez, Fruto Vivas, all these people. Who has a contact in the military? And Adan Chavez said, I have a brother there. He can help us. No? No, this is history, this is true. So Chavez was very young, but he learned the importance of military and civil society. So when he started to be in power, before being in power, he created this idea. Let's go let's go united, no? With civico-militar, he used to say. It is not new in Latin America. In Latin America, there have been experiences like that. When you see these great men, in Peru was one, in Santo Domingo another, you must remember, because you are a historian, you know. Well, my friend from Cuba. So it was like a historic memory in Latin America too. And he took those flags and he said, okay, let's try to accommodate military people with civil society. What happened with that? Our military were nourished in United States, in what they call the School of Americas, so ugly that they had to close it. They had to close the School of Americas because all the dictators of Latin America were trained there. So, and that's another sign about the changes in Latin America. So today, these military people are from the left. They are committed to a purpose, a collective purpose. They are committed to another way of thinking society. And that is why you see the armed forces very united with the government. Very united with the government. I don't think that will have a division or something like that. I don't think so. You have to see that the army is not in the streets. Who are in the streets are the Guardia Nacional. They are military too, but they are not the ejército. And their mission is the public order. It's like police. There are countries where police is part of the army. Well, the National Guard is part of the army, but is not the ejército. I don't know if I...
The army, yeah.
It's not the army. Okay. So I don't think that there will be a division there. And I'm taking this and passing to the problem in the street, okay? Last week, the Minister of Defense, the big general, declared that he doesn't want to see another National Guard committing bad things, I don't know to say that in English, in the streets. There are many National Guards that are in jail now. It is not that the government is saving them. No. There are National Guards in jail and there are civilians in jail. The violence in Venezuela, and that's the problem with the possibility of a civil war, is that these despite the efforts of the government, listen to me, of the government, of the law, and of the military, there have been excesses from the National Guard. That is true. And there have been excesses from the people, from the civilian, no, from the civilians paid by the opposition. And who gives the opposition the money to do that? This money comes from abroad. This money comes from abroad, directly to the political parties or with mercenaries that are coming from Colombia, coming from Brazil, coming. So there is a big problem. If I come here and tell you, no, the only ones who are doing violence are the left. That's not true. The right. That's not true. There are people in the left, maybe because they are angry, maybe because whatever, but they are doing bad things. The difference is that they are not being paid. In the opposition, they are being paid. And there are some ones, youngsters from the university, they are not being paid. They just go as we used to go. Maybe I did it when I was a student. And I supported many students before Fidel, as I did it. We also went to the streets with what we understood that was our right. So it is not so easy as to say, no, the violence coming from this side. You see? Now, there is a big amount of money circulating in these groups. And these groups, they target neighborhoods, they target hospitals, I don't know why they do that. More with the hospitals. This is something that repels me. Why they do that? And they target the military. And my president has had to say to the military, do not react. They come to the headquarters of the military in San Cristobal. San Cristobal is a state of Táchira, next to Colombia. And they destroyed the thing with nipples, with nipples, I don't know how to... Tracatá, no, the Molotov, no. It's something very big that you can, morteros.
Mortars, yeah.
So, it's very difficult. What happened at the National Assembly? There was the 5th of July, and you have to go to the National Assembly to take the sword of Bolivar. And the Vice President did that. Now, when you say to the people, the vice president is coming. So everyone went to the what? To the reja. Okay? Okay.
Outside the National Assembly.
Outside. But there was a reja, and they were, and you can see everything that happens inside. Mm-hmm. Okay. Some quarrel, something happened inside. And someone say, there's going to happen something to the vice president that I don't know. A disaster. And they entered the
People
city.
came in.
And it is true they didn't enter to say, please don't do that. No. They are violent. And what they did was not good. And the first one who said that was the president. And we have a communique from the government that was published the 5th of July. I don't have it in Spanish, but in English. But in that communique, the first paragraph is the president saying that he condemns that. You cannot do that. So it's very difficult. The situation is not easy. This morning we were in the headline news of the BBC. Headlines news with that. Well, the oil. What happened with the oil is the oil is not only the oil market that you can, manipulate as you want. Apart from that, you have the cracking that made the United States capable of having now more oil.
The fracking, yeah.
Fracking. How you say it in English?
Fracking. F4.
Fracking. Okay. The fracking. Uh-huh. But you can destroy the possibility, the capacity of producing if you make like a boycott, I don't know, inside, in the refineries, in the facilities inside in Venezuela, and also if you manipulate the markets to guarantee that Venezuela has no access to financing. If you put the problem of the highest risk, this measure that they have, if you put it very high, there comes a moment that a country cannot have fresh money because of that, because the interests are
The rating agencies
are very, very high. Okay, all this combined has made Venezuela to low a little the production, and that with the low oil prices in the market has made this. And then you have to take the money from wherever you can. You cannot have reserves because you cannot have access to fresh money. That is, the United States, by the way, is doing that with Nicaragua. Is taking Nicaragua the possibility of financing, to have access to financing. And this is very bad for Nicaragua because they are not as rich as us. Because 6 billion, well, 6 billion is 6 billion. Not too much, but. So that's more or less the situation.
Anybody want to ask a question of Rocío? Identify yourself if you can.
Although it's my name. I'm just curious to know, when Ronald Reagan came to power, the first thing he did was to reduce the capacity to sell oil at the prices that the Soviet Union did, to put massive pressure on their economy, okay? Yeah? Now, pre-1935, Venezuela had a very good agricultural base, as you said. Now, Bolivia and Ecuador have a brilliant economy. Just like Ireland, a brilliant agricultural economy. Just like here, okay? Now, the Venezuelan authorities in power now must, if they have studied history, understood at some stage that oil prices were going to go down. I'm just curious, why didn't the government, just as a matter of history, why didn't the government put money into its agricultural base and also what's the word, to plan that like our good friends the Cubans did, plan that the oil prices would reduce. Why? What happened there? And also, no, I'll just leave it at that. Yeah.
Okay. We might take a couple of questions because Rocío has a capacity to remember all the questions and answer them. We get a few quicker. Sorry.
Damien Kill. I'm just wondering what she said about the attack on the barracks earlier on. Had that been backed by the CIA, or was there any involvement in the Americans, directly or even indirectly?
The attack in San Cristobal.
On the barracks that you mentioned, where the
San Cristobal, the army base.
It's not only San Cristobal.
Okay. Sorry, let's finish.
No. I just want to know, were the Americans directly or indirectly involved with the CIA?
Evidence of involvement? Okay, we'll take another.
First of all, I'd like to apologise. Philly McGrath wanted to attend. He hasn't attended his place.
Thanks, great.
When we saw the coup when Chavez was alive, and you saw the people coming in to support him from the poor areas, because you're saying about the huge cuts you've had now since the oil has come down, you don't have the same capacity to help the social justice and that. Will you still get the same support from those people coming out as there was for Chavez? Because I'm reminded of Nicaragua. I was there about 30 years ago, the 10th anniversary, and it was a hugely popular revolution. But when the elections came about 2 years later, the people, it wasn't because they didn't love the Sandinistas, it was they voted with their stomachs because they were so tired of the interference of the Americans. Yeah. Is there a chance, or is there something to be learned from the Nicaraguan experience with the Venezuela experience as about the poor coming in from the barrios? Do you still have the same kind of support as you had with Chavez?
Okay, we'll take those three. Are you okay?
I am going to start with the last again. Well, no Boris Chavez. Maduro is not Chavez. Correa is not Chavez. Chavez was a political monster. That was Chavez. When I was ambassador to China, I was 9 years ambassador to China. And the first time Chavez went there, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs told me, but this was December 2004, Ambassador, don't call for any manifestation or don't talk to anyone. We don't want, groups in support of Chavez. I said, no, forget it. I worked with them the program, and there was nothing, only one thing. He was going to lay a wreath in the statue of Bolivar and in the statue of Jose Marti, that is very near to the statue of Bolivar.
In Caracas?
In China, in Beijing.
China. Okay.
In Beijing. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of China asked me that. So we worked the program, and the only thing that was outdoors was that offering. My darling, if I tell you what happened, you won't believe it. More than 35,000 Chinese people were there asking for him in the poor, the square, the plaza. Imagine the people there, because they learned by the press that he was going to be there. That was Chavez. Chavez was something out of I don't know. So, what is Maduro doing? Maduro is calling the people to go through Chavez, through the constitution that Chavez created, to use the tools that Chavez gave us, the referendum, the constituent, to appease, to try to come up with some new deal and advance and go ahead. Because he knows that if he goes through Chavez, if he appeals to the Constitution that every one of us know that is coming from him, there is a good chance. The people, the Chavistas and the Maduristas, because they think in Maduro as the son of Chavez, they are there. And God forbid they don't come up to the streets. God forbid. They are there, and they are suffering as everybody suffers, the situation in Venezuela, the economical situation in Venezuela. But they are disciplined. They appertain to a group of a political party. They have leaders in the communities, and they are saying, wait, God forbid they don't go out, because they are not few. The PSUV has a good basis, and Maduro has, well, if that was not so, why Maduro is still in power? It's because there is a good back from the people.
Okay.
And let me tell you something. I am not from the PSUV. I am from the Communist Party since I was 13 years old. I have nothing to do with the PSUV. There is another one.
Yes, me preguntaron por qué el gobierno no invirtió en agricultura.
That one.
Explain
PSUV
for the people who don't know what you mean.
PSUV. PSUV is the party of the government. Socialist. Marcos is from the PSUV. Chavez used to ask me, when are you going to be for the PSUV? And I say, they haven't convinced me. I am communist. I am from the Communist Party. Okay. Agriculture. Agriculture. That is the big question. As I told you, governments, all governments have known that they had to do something. Okay? And one thing I can tell you, Chavez tried to do something. He tried to do something. He was trying to reverse the thing, to put the focus in agriculture. Well, but he died. And as soon as Maduro came to power, this disaster started. Maduro took power. Today and tomorrow there were more than 11 people dead in the street. And let me tell you, I haven't seen one day from 2013, April 2013, up to now, without guarimbas, violence, whatever. I know that if this constituent succeed, we will try agriculture with all our heart, because that's the way. There is no other. You cannot import everything. You can't do that. It's impossible. And well, let me tell you, you have made a good question, because there is not only San Cristobal. There is not only San Cristobal. There are headquarters in the middle of Caracas, La Carlota, that was attacked with morteros. La Carlota, Mérida, that is an Andean country, and San Cristóbal, where is?
San Cristóbal, Mérida, La Carlota.
Those districts. The importance of La Carlota is that it's very dear to us, because it's a military place in the middle of Caracas, where they have helicopters and these little planes, okay? Not big planes. But there is the headquarters of the National Youth Orchestra, Dudamel? Dudamel, the magnificent youth orchestra of Venezuela in classic music. Okay, the second headquarters of this orchestra are there at the Carlota. And they took that and with mortars. So maybe the money comes from outside. That is true. That comes directly from United States. I don't know. Maybe through a political party, through a group. Okay? But there are 3 military headquarters. From the army, it is not National Guard, army. Okay. No, the situation is not good. Not at all.
Okay, we'll take another couple, sorry.
Yeah, I'd like to ask you, what could our people do to help the people of Venezuela? You know, you've explained problems in Venezuela, but like what can we do as Irish citizens to assist the people of Venezuela?
Okay, we'll take Declan and sorry, the third one.
Jimmy Dorn. There hasn't been a day without violence since April 2013, but yet it still hasn't escalated into a civil war. Do you feel that the state is doing enough to put down this opposition, whether it's from within or from outside, be it the CIA or whoever else? And why, up until this point, it hasn't actually escalated?
Well, I just want, just a clarification. You said that the Organization of American States was the regional wing of the UN. I presume you meant the US.
No.
Did you not?
No. I will explain to you.
Okay, and then one more, because we're going to be running up against the clock soon.
You said, so, Joe Regan's my name. You said something about where the actual supplies for the country are, food supplies or whatever, and they're being controlled by the right wing distributors or whatever. What efforts have Venezuela or the Venezuelan government made to correct this? Because I've seen a very disturbing article on the South American, I'm not sure it was a South American television station, where supporters of the right wing went in and actually petrol bombed supplies, destroyed a warehouse full of food. You know?
The last one. Ya va, mi amor, ahorita me dice. The last one, okay. Again, the last one. If you see the pictures, okay. So, what they are doing, what the government did, the government said, okay, let us put in place our own distribution of food. Let us put in place our own distribution of food. And then they started to destroy this capacity. And you can see the pictures, because today everybody takes pictures of the convoys, with food, with merchandise, destroyed, completely destroyed, coming up from the ports or going in Caracas, whatever. The government is trying to do, he does, and then you have there, it's like an enemy from within. It's very difficult. It's like a little civil war. That is and if that escalates,
and then
I
he
hope
asked,
not.
then what are you doing about these? Is it Jim? Yeah, Jim asked, what are you doing about these groups? What is the government doing about these armed organizations or groups?
Well, it's very complex. It's very complex. I don't know if maybe there are other ways of dealing with this. There are many people inside that are asking, and outside that are asking, why Maduro tolerates this? Why? Why is he not just doing something? I suppose the government is trying to go in a way that do not provoke more violence. He is trying to do it. He's trying to do it.
Trying not to escalate this.
I don't know. He's trying to deal with the other way, other form, no? Putting in jail the people who has to be in jail. Even if they are Guardia Nacional. It doesn't matter if they have uniform or they don't have. Trying to present a way of dialogue through the Constitution. He's trying to do that, but we need more. The help from abroad, and that's why your question is important. For us, it's very important that groups of people just put a communique or whatever, a declaration saying, Venezuela has the right to have their own saying, their own, to deal with their problems. And nobody has the right to to intervene. We have at our side Colombia with a civil war, but it's a civil war for years, and that was a war. Nobody intervened. Why they don't let us to deal with our problem? We can do it. We can do it. What we don't want is people telling us what to do. People getting into Venezuela to say, you have to do this, you have to do this. Why? Why? Sovereignty and non-intervention is very important for countries like Latin Americans, because we have been intervening for almost more than 200 years. You know about that. You have been intervening, and we don't know. We don't want that again. We don't want that again. So the more you write, you put your say in the nets, or you come together. There are movements that come together in the world and say, we are with a Bolivarian revolution, or something like that. Something that indicates that there are people in the world that are thinking about us and don't want us to fail. What else can you do?
Well, it brings us nicely around to the...
No, because I have a question about United Nations. Okay. United Nations was born in 1945. Okay. But it has branches. Okay? And one of the branches that was born in 1945, like 47, 48, was the OAS. The OAS, the Organization of American States. So United Nations has branches in Geneva, okay? And in many places, in Italy, the FAO, UNESCO in France. You see, the OAS is a branch, exactly the same. What was the recipe? The recipe was, let's go first through the OAS. Okay? It's natural. It's American. American for the Americans. We can do it there. They couldn't. They couldn't do it. And then they realized that they couldn't have the declaration of the OAS against Venezuela. And then they go to Europe. Why? Because the European Parliament approved a very, very nasty declaration against Venezuela. And it approved it almost for 550, I don't know, parliamentarians votes. So they are trying to do with the European Union what they couldn't do at the OAS. Yes.
Okay. This meeting was organised at the request of the ambassador when she came over for her accreditation meeting with the president. And what we attempted to set out to do was to get a group of parliamentarians, I suppose, from different parties, progressive parties in particular. And for various reasons, because it was such short notice, it's a Saturday, we were due to have it on a Monday up in the Dog. So we invited a number of TDs and parties, including Labour, Sinn Féin, Independence, Maureen turned up, Finian has a representative here, Mick Wallace has, I think, Sinn Féin and Labour met with the ambassador. Sinn Féin did, certainly anyway, when she was here. So there is an embryo of parliamentarians or people on the left. I know there's a lot of Communist Party people also. A number of trade unions are anxious to get involved and to raise the issue. And the Cuban Solidarity campaign, the ambassador alerted people from that network. So in terms of what we can do, and we're really starting with a blank sheet. This is the first time Rocío has spoken in any sort of public setting in Ireland. So I think, given the urgency of the situation, and going back to that question, what I think we should do, and I think Robert Navan, who's already been active in supporting and building solidarity with Venezuela for several years, we should, I think, try and get a nucleus of a group together, go back to the TDs and try and get urgently a meeting, a cross-party meeting. If we can get Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, all the better. And to try and basically raise the issue of concern at the highest level we can within government and across the parties, and also try and organise some public events and fundraising and information gathering and information spreading, and do what solidarity campaigns are supposed to do. I think that's all we could suggest from here. There's no great plan, but we will. I think there's enough people here to try and start something going anyway. So maybe when your next visit, we'll be able to have a bigger gathering, more people, plan it in ahead, and you'll be talking to a bigger crowd maybe.
Yes, thank you so much.